All right. So, we love a good challenge here, right? And
I've tried.
you sent this one over, the 10-day self-discipline challenge. And honestly, just the title alone has me kind of intrigued. Like 10 days, that's it. That's all it
No,
takes.
it's interesting because I think a lot of us think of self-discipline as this kind of like, I don't know, this really big, overwhelming thing,
Yeah.
right? Like this mountain we have to climb. But what I like about this challenge is it breaks it down into these smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay, so bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. So you're not trying to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Yeah.
You're focusing on one specific thing each day, and you're building on that momentum as you go.
I like that. So it's not just about like white knuckling your way through it. It's about building a system.
Yeah.
Okay. So walk me through this. Like, where do we even begin? What's day one?
Day one is, and this is so crucial, it's define your why. And I know that might sound a little, I don't know, maybe a little obvious, but I think it's something we often skip over, right? We're so quick to jump into the how, like, how do I become more disciplined?
Right.
But we don't always take the time to really figure out why it matters to us.
Yeah, and this is something we talk about a lot on the show too, right? Like, if you don't have that deeper motivation, if you don't know why you're doing something, it's going to be so much harder to stick with it.
It is. It absolutely is. And so day one is all about spending some time, like 15 to 20 minutes, really digging deep and articulating why you want to be more disciplined.
So not just like, oh, I should be more disciplined or I want to be one of those disciplined people. Like, what's the deeper reason?
Right. Like, what are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah.
How will being more disciplined improve your life?
Hmm.
Like, are you trying to be more productive at work? Are you trying to improve your relationships? Are you trying to get healthier?
So it's about getting really specific and connecting it to those bigger goals, those bigger values that we have.
Exactly. And the challenge even suggests writing it down, like
Oh,
actually putting pen to paper, because there's something about that act, right?
yeah.
That makes it more real, more tangible, like you're making a commitment to yourself.
I like that. It's like a contract with yourself. Okay, so day one, we've got our why all figured out. What's next?
Well, now that you know your why, day two is all about setting yourself up for success. And so it's design a powerful morning routine.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm not a morning person.
But even if you're not, even if you're someone who hits the snooze button 5 times before you finally drag yourself out of bed,
Guilty.
a good morning routine can make such a huge difference in setting the tone for your entire day.
Okay, so what does a powerful morning routine even look like? Like, are we talking about like 5 a.m. yoga and green smoothies?
Well, the challenge actually lays out a sample routine.
Okay.
But what I love is that it really emphasizes adapting it to your own needs and preferences.
Okay, so no need to suddenly become like a fitness guru if that's not your thing.
Exactly. The key is to find what works for you. But some of the core elements that it suggests are things like waking up early, hydrating, getting some light stretching or exercise in,
yeah.
maybe spending a few minutes meditating or journaling, and then reviewing your priorities for the day.
It's okay. So it's like setting yourself up for those good decisions to happen throughout the day.
Exactly. And the challenge actually emphasizes, no matter what your routine looks like, that the combination of hydration and prioritizing is key. Because when you start your day hydrated and with a clear sense of what you need to accomplish, you're just so much more likely to make those good choices throughout the day.
I like that. It's like laying the groundwork right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've defined our why. We've got our morning routine sorted. What's day three?
Day three is, and this one might be a little tough, it's no complaints or excuses day.
Okay, whoa. Hold on a second. A whole day without complaining. Are you serious? I don't even know if that's humanly possible.
Right. I know, it sounds intense. And the source actually acknowledges that it might be really difficult. The idea isn't to become some kind of like positivity robot, It's more about becoming aware of how much energy we waste on negativity.
Okay, so it's like a mindfulness exercise almost.
Exactly. It's about noticing when you're complaining or making excuses and then consciously choosing to shift your focus to something more positive or productive.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Like instead of complaining about traffic, I could use that time to listen to a podcast or, I don't know, call my mom or something.
Exactly. Or if you're tempted to make an excuse for why you can't do something, you could challenge yourself to find a way to make it happen. And the source actually suggests a little trick for this day, which I think is really clever. They say to wear a bracelet or a ring or something as a visual reminder to catch yourself before you complain.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So it's like a little nudge, like, hey, remember what day it is? Okay, I like
Put
that.
a little accountability buddy on your wrist.
Okay, so no complaining, no excuses. What's next? Day 4.
Day 4 is all about tackling those bad habits. It's identify and eliminate a bad habit. And, we all have them,
Oh,
right?
tell me about it. I got a whole collection.
But I think what's so interesting about this challenge is it goes deeper than just saying, okay, stop doing that, right?
Right.
It encourages you to really analyze the habit. Like, what triggers it? What's the reward you're getting from it? Because once you understand those things, you can start to break the cycle.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
So, for example, let's say you have a habit of, I don't know, mindlessly scrolling through social media every night before bed. Instead of just trying to stop cold turkey, ask yourself, what's triggering that behavior?
Right, right. Like, am I bored? Am I lonely?
Exactly. Are you procrastinating on something else? And then, what's the reward you're getting? Is it a distraction from your thoughts? Is it a way to connect with other people?
It's almost like you're becoming a detective for your own habits.
Exactly. And once you've gathered all the clues, you can start to develop a plan for change. And the source offers a really great tip here.
Okay.
They say, don't just try to stop the bad habit, replace it with a positive one. So, for example, instead of scrolling through social media, maybe pick up a book or listen to a podcast or spend some time talking to your partner.
Okay, so it's not just about deprivation. It's about making that swap.
Yeah, exactly. It's about creating a new, healthier pattern of behavior. Okay, ready for day 5?
Bring it on. I'm on a roll.
All right. Well, day 5 is all about one of the cornerstones of self-discipline. Practice delayed gratification.
Oh, I've heard of this. Is this the marshmallow test?
You got it. That classic experiment where they put a marshmallow in front of a kid and they say, okay, you can have this marshmallow now, or if you wait, you can have 2 marshmallows later.
Yeah, yeah. And it turns out those kids who could delay gratification, they ended up having all sorts of positive outcomes later in life, right?
They did. They were more successful in school. They had better relationships. They were even healthier. Because that ability to delay gratification, to resist that immediate temptation in favor of a larger reward later on, it's a key predictor of success in so many areas of life.
Okay. But how do we, translate that to grown-up life?
Right.
It's not always about marshmallows.
Well, and that's what this day explores. It's about applying that same principle to all sorts of different situations.
Oh, yeah.
Like saving money for a down payment on a house instead of splurging on a new car, or working towards a promotion instead of just coasting in your current job.
Right, right. It's like playing that long game.
It is, yeah. It's about making choices that align with our future selves, even if it means resisting those temptations in the present moment.
Okay, so practical tips. How do we actually do this?
Well, the challenge suggests a few things. First, get really clear on your goals, right? Write them down, visualize them, make them as tangible as possible. Then break those larger goals down into smaller, more manageable milestones. So it's not just this huge, overwhelming thing you're working towards. It's a series of smaller steps.
Yeah.
And then find ways to make those steps enjoyable, because if you're dreading the process, you're much less likely to stick with it.
Okay, I like that. Make it fun. Okay, so day 5, we're mastering delayed gratification. What's up next?
Well, day 6 is all about structure. It's time block your day.
Ooh, okay. Time blocking. I've dabbled in this, and I have to say, I'm a fan.
Yeah, it can be a game changer. Essentially, it's about dividing your day into chunks of time and assigning specific tasks to each block. So, maybe from 9 to 10, you're working on that big project. From 10 to 11, you're answering emails. From 11 to 12, you're taking a break, going for a walk, having lunch, and so on.
It's like creating a roadmap for your day. So you're not just kind of wandering around aimlessly, reacting to whatever comes up.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and intentional with your time.
I have found that it helps so much with procrastination, too.
Absolutely, because when you have a specific time slot allocated for a task, you're much less likely to put it off. It's there on your schedule, you're committed to it.
It's funny. I used to think of time blocking as this kind of rigid, restrictive thing. But I've actually found that it's the opposite. It frees me up.
Yeah.
Because I'm not constantly stressing about what I should be doing. It's all laid out for me.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's almost like it takes the decision-making out of it, so you can just focus on the task at hand. And the challenge actually suggests using the Pomodoro technique, which is a great way to implement time blocking.
Oh, yeah. The Pomodoro technique. I love that. So that's those 25-minute intervals of focused work followed by a short break.
Exactly. And those little breaks are so important, right?
They are, because it's it prevents burnout. It gives you a chance to reset, recharge, and come back to your work with fresh eyes. Plus, there's something about that timer going off that just makes me want to, like, power through the task and get it done.
I know. It's amazing how much we can accomplish when we have a little bit of structure and accountability. All right, what do you think? Ready to tackle day 7?
Absolutely.
Day 7 is dedicate an hour to deep work. And this is where we really get into that flow state, where we're able to make significant progress on those complex, high-value projects.
Okay. Deep work. This is something I struggle with.
Well, and it's something that's becoming increasingly difficult in our always connected world, right? With all the distractions and notifications and interruptions. But it's also more important than ever because that's where the real magic happens.
So talk to me about strategies. Like, how do we actually create space for deep work? Because I find that even when I block off an hour on my calendar, I'm still constantly getting pulled away by emails, phone calls, just life stuff.
Right. And that's why it's so important to be really intentional about creating a distraction-free environment.
Okay.
So, turn off your notifications, put your phone on silent, close your email, let those around you know that you need this dedicated time.
And maybe even find a different location to work, like a library or a coffee shop or somewhere where you're not going to be tempted by, like, laundry or dishes or all those other things that are calling your name at home.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great strategy.
Because I find sometimes the change of scenery can do wonders for my focus.
It can. And, the challenge also emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between shallow work, like answering emails, scrolling through social media,
Right, yeah.
and deep work, which is where you're really engaging your cognitive abilities, you're solving complex problems, you're creating something new.
It's like the difference between, I don't know, wading in the shallow end of the pool versus diving into the deep end. Right?
Exactly. And so much of our day is spent in that shallow end, just kind of reacting to things, checking things off our to-do list.
That's true. Go.
But when we carve out that time for deep work, we're able to tap into our full potential, and we're able to produce work that's truly meaningful and impactful.
Okay, I'm sold. I need to make more time for deep work. So what's next? What's day 8?
Well, day 8 is a little bit different. It's a physical challenge, but don't worry, you don't have to suddenly become a marathon runner.
Okay, good. Because my marathon days are long gone.
The challenge emphasizes finding a physical activity that you enjoy.
Okay.
And that you can realistically incorporate into your routine.
So it could be anything from, like, going for a walk to, I don't know, taking the dance class, hitting the gym, like whatever floats your boat.
Whatever floats your boat, yeah.
Okay.
The key is to get moving.
Okay.
Because there's such a strong connection between physical challenge and mental resilience.
Right. I've definitely noticed that when I'm exercising regularly, I just feel more energized, more focused, more capable of handling whatever life throws at me.
It's so true. And the source talks about how exercise releases all those feel-good chemicals in our brain, endorphins, dopamine. And so not only does it improve our physical health, but it also boosts our mood, our energy levels, and even our cognitive function.
It's like a secret weapon for self-discipline.
It is, yeah. It's amazing. Okay, are you ready for day 9?
Hit me with it.
All right, day 9 is a digital detox.
Uh-oh. This sounds scary.
Yeah, I know. It can be a tough one for a lot of us. Essentially, the challenge is to disconnect from all those digital distractions.
Okay.
Social media, email, the internet in general, for at least 4 hours.
Okay.
Or if you're feeling really ambitious, you can do the whole day.
The whole day. I don't know about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I see the value in disconnecting, but I'm pretty attached to my devices. I'm curious, what does the source say we should do with all that newfound time? Like, what are we supposed to do if we're not staring at our screens?
Well, they recommend using it for those enriching activities that we often don't make time for,
Okay, like what?
Like reading a book, spending time in nature, having meaningful conversations, pursuing a hobby, maybe learning a new skill.
Okay, yeah. So it's not just about deprivation. It's about, like, filling that void with something else.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming those things that bring us joy and fulfillment.
Okay, I like that. It's a good reminder that there's a whole world out there beyond our screens.
Yeah.
So that's 9 days down. What's the grand finale? Day 10.
Well, day 10 is all about reflection and celebration.
Right.
It's about taking a step back, acknowledging all the progress you've made over the past 9 days, and then creating a plan for maintaining those positive changes going forward.
Okay, so it's like the cool down after a workout.
Yeah, I like that analogy. It's about, giving yourself some credit for all the effort you've put in
Hmm.
and then reflecting on what worked, what didn't work, what you learned about yourself along the way.
So it's like a chance to integrate all those lessons and create a plan for the future.
Exactly. And the source suggests revisiting your why from day one,
Oh, right.
because that initial motivation is what's going to fuel your continued progress.
Right.
It's about remembering why you embarked on this journey in the first place and using that inspiration to keep moving forward.
Wow. I love that. It brings the whole challenge full circle. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Morning routines, digital detoxes, physical challenges. It's a pretty well-rounded approach, wouldn't you say?
It is, yeah. And I think what's so powerful about it is that it combines these practical strategies
Hmm.
with that deeper understanding of the psychology behind self-discipline.
Right. Because it's not just about willpower. It's about understanding our habits, our mindset, and how all those pieces fit together.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this has definitely given me a lot to think about. I'm already starting to reframe how I approach self-discipline in my own life. But before we get too carried away, we still have a lot more to unpack.
We do, we do. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to be exploring the deeper psychological principles behind self-discipline.
Okay?
And we'll be talking about some even more advanced techniques for taking your self-discipline to the next level.
I'm ready for it. I can't wait to hear more. But for now, let's take a little break. We'll be right back with more insights and strategies for building unshakable self-discipline.
Sounds great. Welcome back. So, we've spent a good amount of time talking about these first 7 days of the challenge. The practical steps, the morning routines, digital detoxes, all that good stuff. But I'm really curious to kind of dig into what's going on beneath the surface, like what's the psychology behind all of this?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that because it's easy to get caught up in the to-do list aspect of self-discipline, right? The schedules, the rules, all that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a whole other layer here, like how our brains are actually wired and how that plays into our ability to be disciplined.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Because, self-discipline, it seems like it's this very practical thing, right? Like, make a to-do list, don't eat the cookie. But really, it's all about our brains.
Yeah. So break it down for me. Like what's happening up there when we try to be more disciplined?
Well, one of the key things is the role of habits, right? So habits are basically these ingrained pathways in our brains, like
Oh.
shortcuts that we automatically take without even thinking about it.
Right. And our brains love shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
They're all about efficiency,
That was-
conserving energy.
Exactly. And so this plays into self-discipline in a big way. Like, think about day 4 of the challenge. Identify and eliminate a bad habit. It's not just about willpower.
Right.
It's about understanding that that bad habit is probably serving some kind of purpose, even if it's not a good one.
So like my habit of snacking late at night, like maybe it's not because I'm actually hungry. Maybe it's because I'm stressed or I'm bored and I'm just looking for a way to soothe myself.
Exactly. And so by understanding that underlying need, we can start to break that habit loop. It's not just about suppressing the behavior. It's about rewiring those neural pathways.
So it's about figuring out like what's the root cause of the habit and finding a healthier way to meet that need.
Precisely. And that's where that tip from the challenge about replacing bad habits with good ones comes in. Like, it's much easier to build a new path than to simply try to block off the old one.
I like that analogy. It's like instead of just putting up a road closed sign, you're actually building a whole new road.
Yeah.
Okay, so habits are a big part of it. What else is going on up there in our brains when we talk about self-discipline?
Another really important principle is the power of small, consistent actions. And this is something that comes up again and again in this challenge, right? Whether we're talking about morning routines or practicing delayed gratification or even the digital detox. Like, it's not about making these huge sweeping changes overnight.
Right.
It's about taking those baby steps, those small wins that add up over time.
Right. It's like building a muscle. You wouldn't go to the gym and expect to bench press like 200 pounds on your first day, right?
Exactly. You'd probably hurt yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta start small, gradually increase the weight, and be consistent with your workouts.
Exactly. And self-discipline is the same way. Like, it's a muscle that needs to be trained over time. So, those small, consistent actions, they're like those little reps at the gym. They're building that strength, that resilience that we need to stay disciplined over the long haul.
Okay, so what are some mental workouts we can do to strengthen that self-discipline muscle?
Well, one that's really powerful is visualization. And I'm not just talking about like daydreaming here, but it's about creating a vivid mental image of yourself successfully achieving your goal.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I've heard about this. Like, athletes use visualization all the time to improve their performance, right?
Ah.
But how would that work in like a, in a work context or, some other area of life?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say you're working on a really challenging project at work and you're feeling kind of overwhelmed by it. Instead of focusing on that stress and anxiety, you could take a few minutes to visualize yourself calmly and confidently completing that project, like feeling that sense of accomplishment, of pride in your work.
So it's like giving your brain a preview of success, almost like a mental rehearsal.
Exactly. And by doing this repeatedly, you're actually strengthening those neural pathways that are associated with those positive outcomes. So you're essentially training your brain to believe that success is possible.
Oh, I love that. It's like giving yourself a pep talk from the future. Okay, now we can't talk about self-discipline without talking about willpower. Like, what's the latest science on that? Because I feel like there's so much conflicting information out there. Like, some people say it's this finite resource that gets depleted throughout the day, and other people say it's like a muscle that can be strengthened. What's the deal?
It's so true. Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth about that. And for a long time, willpower was seen as this finite resource. Like
Right.
we only had so much of it. And once we used it up, we were done. But newer research is suggesting that willpower is actually more like a muscle that can be strengthened through practice.
Okay, so it's not like we have this limited supply that gets used up throughout the day.
Not necessarily. It's more about how we manage our energy and attention. Like if we're constantly bombarding ourselves with temptations and distractions, our willpower muscle is going to get fatigued.
That makes sense. It's like trying to run a marathon without taking any breaks or refueling along the way.
Yeah.
Like, eventually you're going to hit a wall.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's where some of these other strategies in the challenge come in, right? Things like designing a supportive environment, eliminating distractions, practicing mindfulness. Those can all help us conserve our willpower so we can make better choices throughout the day.
So it's about creating a system that sets us up for success
Yeah.
rather than just relying on brute force willpower.
Exactly. And that's a really important point because I think a lot of times we think of self-discipline as this like, white knuckling, grit your teeth kind of thing, but it's really not. It's about being strategic and it's about understanding your own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. It's about working with yourself, not against yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is all making me think about the whole mindset aspect of self-discipline. Because it seems like if we believe that we're weak-willed or we're just not disciplined people, like that's probably going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like our beliefs about ourselves play a huge role in our behavior.
Mm.
So if we believe that self-discipline is all about deprivation and punishment, we're going to resist it, right? It's going to feel like this awful thing that we have to force ourselves to do.
But if we can reframe it, if we can see it as a form of self-care, as a way of investing in our future selves, then it becomes a lot more appealing.
Absolutely. It's about shifting from that mindset of I have to I choose to. Because ultimately, self-discipline is about freedom, right? It's about having the power to make choices that align with our values and our goals, rather than being controlled by our impulses or by external pressures.
I love that perspective. It's not about being a robot. It's about being the author of your own life.
Exactly. And it all comes back to day one. Define your why. Because when we have that strong sense of purpose, when we're connected to our values, then self-discipline becomes less about forcing ourselves to do things and more about aligning our actions with what truly matters to us.
It's like that quote, discipline is remembering what you want.
Yeah.
Like, it's about keeping that bigger picture in mind, even when we're faced with those smaller, more immediate temptations.
Exactly. It's so true. And that's the beauty of this 10-day challenge. It's not just about checking boxes or following rules. It's about developing this deeper understanding of yourself and what motivates you.
It's like a self-discovery journey disguised as a self-discipline challenge.
I love that. Yeah. And like any journey, it's going to have its ups and downs. There will be days when you feel super motivated and on track, and there will be days when you feel like giving up, but that's okay.
Yeah, like it's all part of the process, right? We're not going to be perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. The key is to be kind to yourself, to learn from your setbacks, and to keep moving forward one step at a time.
We've covered so much ground here. The practical strategies, the psychology behind it all. I'm curious, what are your thoughts so far? What's resonated with you the most?
You know what I find so fascinating is how this challenge weaves together these different elements of self-discipline.
Yeah.
The habits, the mindset, the willpower, the importance of having that strong why. Like, it's a very holistic approach, right?
Hmm.
It's recognizing that it's not just about one thing. It's about all of these pieces working together.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a quick fix. It's a lifestyle change.
Exactly. And that's why I think this challenge has the potential to be so powerful. It's not just about getting through these 10 days. It's about building a foundation for a more disciplined and a more fulfilling life.
It totally is, yeah. This has given me so much to think about, and I'm already, like, starting to kind of reframe how I approach self-discipline in my own life, but we still have a few more days of the challenge to explore, right?
We do. We're just getting started. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to be exploring some more advanced techniques and resources to help you take your self-discipline to the next level.
I'm ready for it. Bring it on. I can't wait to hear what you have in store for us. All right, so we're back, and, we've talked about the foundations, the habits, the mindset, the willpower, but I'm ready to kind of level up here. Like, what are some more advanced techniques, some ninja-level self-discipline strategies that we can really start to implement?
I like that, ninja level. All right, well, I'm happy to share some of my favorite tools and techniques that I think can really help you take things to the next level. One technique that I find incredibly helpful is called implementation intentions. Have you heard of this one?
Implementation intentions? I don't think so. Tell me more.
So it's basically about planning for those moments of temptation before they happen.
Okay.
So instead of relying on willpower in the heat of the moment, you create a very specific plan for how you're going to respond to a potential trigger.
Okay, so instead of just, like, hoping that I'll resist that extra cookie at the party, I would actually have a predetermined action plan in place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you might say to yourself, okay, if someone offers me a cookie, I'm going to politely decline and say no thank you and maybe ask for a glass of water instead.
Mhm.
And by having that plan in place, you're basically removing the decision-making burden from your future self.
That's brilliant. It's like outsmarting your own impulses.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. What other tools do we have in this, like, advanced self-discipline toolkit?
Another one that's really powerful is mindfulness. And I know you've probably heard a lot about mindfulness lately, but it really can be a game changer when it comes to self-discipline.
Yeah, yeah, mindfulness is definitely having a moment, right?
Mm.
I've dabbled in some meditation apps and stuff, but I'm curious, like, how does it specifically apply to self-control?
Well, so much of our impulsive behavior stems from reacting unconsciously to our thoughts and feelings, right?
Yeah.
So, we get stressed, we reach for the comfort food, we feel bored, we scroll mindlessly through social media. Mindfulness is about creating that space between the stimulus and our response.
Okay, so instead of just being on autopilot, I'm actually aware of what's happening, like, internally,
Exactly.
and then I have the chance to, like, choose a different course of action.
Exactly. So let's say you're trying to cut back on sugar, but you're suddenly hit with this really intense chocolate craving. Instead of just immediately giving in, you pause.
Okay.
You notice the physical sensations of that craving. You notice the thoughts that are swirling around in your mind. You acknowledge them without judgment, and then you make a conscious choice.
It's like hitting the pause button on that automatic reaction.
Yeah.
And giving yourself a moment to really decide, like, okay, do I actually want this? Or is this just a fleeting urge?
I love that, hitting the pause button. That's such a great way to think about it. And, the interesting thing is, a lot of times, just by observing those cravings mindfully, they actually start to lose their power over us. It's not about suppressing them. It's about becoming more aware of them and making a conscious choice.
That's powerful stuff.
It is.
This is making me realize, like, how much of my day is really spent on autopilot, just reacting to things instead of responding intentionally.
It's so common.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm handing over control to my impulses instead of being the one in charge.
It's so true. But, the good news is that by cultivating mindfulness, we can start to reclaim that control. We become more aware of our triggers, we become more aware of our patterns, and we have the opportunity to make different choices.
Okay, I'm definitely adding practice more mindfulness to my to-do list. Now, you mentioned resources earlier. Are there any books or, like, any tools that you recommend for people who really want to, like, dive deep into this stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. When it comes to willpower, one book I always recommend is The Willpower Instinct by Kelly McGonigal.
Okay.
It's just a fascinating look at the science of willpower, and it offers so many practical strategies for strengthening it.
Okay, the willpower instinct. Got it. What about habits? Any good resources for understanding how those work?
Atomic Habits by James Clear is fantastic.
Okay.
It just breaks down the science of habit formation in a really clean, accessible way. And it gives you this really practical framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones.
Love that. Atomic Habits, adding that one to the list as well. What about apps? Are there any, like, online tools that you found helpful in your own journey?
Oh, there are so many great ones out there. For habit tracking, I really like Habitica. It's kind of fun because it gamifies the process of building habits, which can be really motivating.
Okay.
And then, of course, for mindfulness, there's Headspace, there's Calm, Insight Timer, like so many different options out there.
It's like having a whole support system, like right in your pocket.
It is. It really is. And, the key is to just find what resonates with you and what fits into your lifestyle.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation, and I feel like we've really gone deep here. We've talked about the practical tips, the psychology of self-control, some more advanced techniques, resources for continued learning. I feel like I've been handed a roadmap for, like, actually building unshakable self-discipline.
I'm so glad to hear that. And it's not about mastering every single technique or becoming some kind of like self-discipline guru overnight. It's about progress, not perfection.
It's about, like you said earlier, taking those small steps, those small wins,
Yes, exactly.
trying things out, finding what works, and being kind to ourselves along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Self-discipline is a journey, not a destination. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it's hard, and making those small, consistent choices that move you closer to the life you want to create.
We talk about like 10 days to a more disciplined you, but this feels bigger than that. Like this feels like a lifelong pursuit.
I think you're absolutely right. It's about cultivating a way of being in the world, intentional, empowered, aligned with your values. And that's a pretty amazing journey to be on.
It really is. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. This has been incredibly insightful.
It's been my pleasure. And to all of our listeners out there, I just encourage you to keep exploring, keep experimenting, keep believing in your ability to create a life you love.
And until next time, keep diving deep.